All right, buckle up, lore fans, because today we're diving headfirst into one of the most monumental events in Warhammer 40K, the Fall of Cadia.
A pivotal moment indeed. Cadia, you see, represents the unyielding spirit of the Imperium.
Exactly, but it's also a stark reminder that even the most fortified bastion can crumble. So let's set the stage for those who might not be as familiar with this little corner of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Imagine Cadia, a fortress world, a shield against the Eye of Terror.
The Eye of Terror, ah yes, that massive warp rift spewing forth a never-ending tide of demons and nightmares.
Basically a demonic hurricane, right? And Cadia is right in its path, holding the line.
Precisely. It's not just a planet, it's the first line of defense. A sentinel guarding the Imperium from the worst the warp can throw at it. And speaking of defenses, let's not forget about those pylons.
Those mysterious towers all over Cadia. What's the deal with those?
Well, those are no ordinary structures. They're ancient Necron relics repurposed by the Imperium.
Necron tech, that's some spooky, powerful stuff.
Indeed. Those pylons are crucial. They suppress the warp's influence, keeping that demonic hurricane, as you put it, somewhat contained.
So we've got a giant fortress world powered by ancient alien tech, holding back a tide of demons. Sounds like a pretty solid defense.
It was, for a time. But even the most fortified walls have weak points.
And in Cadia's case, that weak point was?
The Cadian Gate, the only stable way through the warp in that region.
And that's where Abin the Despoiler decided to make his grand entrance.
Abaddon, the War Master of Chaos. His arrival marked the beginning of the 13th Black Crusade, a turning point in the war for the galaxy.
Now, when we say Black Crusade, we're not talking about a casual weekend trip, right? This is a full-blown, galaxy-shaking invasion.
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't just Abaddon showing up with a horde of screaming demons and hoping for the best. The 13th Black Crusade was a culmination of millennia of planning. Remember, this is a being who's been waging war against the Imperium for centuries.
So every loss, every setback he's faced, it was all part of a larger plan.
Every Black Crusade, every defeat was a lesson learned. A piece of the puzzle leading to this final devastating attack.
So you're telling me this wasn't just some chaotic rampage? Aban was playing 4D chess this whole time. That's terrifying.
Strategy and cunning are not exclusive to the Imperium, my friend. Chaos, in its own way, can be just as insidious. Just look at the events leading up to the 13th Black Crusade.
You're talking about those space hulks crashing into Imperial outposts and those chaos cults popping up all over the place.
Exactly. Those weren't random acts. They were deliberate strikes, meticulously planned to weaken Cadia's defenses, sow discord, and pave the way for the main invasion.
Chaos with a plan.
Ah.
That's a chilling thought. But I'm sure the Imperium wasn't just going to sit back and let this happen. They had to have some heavy hitters ready to defend Cadia, right?
Of course. Defending Cadia was Ursarkar E. Creed, one of the Imperium's most brilliant military minds.
Creed, Cadia's legendary commander. But he wasn't just some by-the-book general, was he?
Oh, no. Creed was known for his unorthodox tactics, his willingness to take risks. Some might even say he was reckless.
Reckless, but effective.
For a time, yes. But his single-minded focus on victory, his almost obsessive need to win, while some argue that it may have ultimately contributed to Cadia's downfall.
The classic debate. Was Creed a hero or a contributing factor to the tragedy?
A debate that rages on even to this day.
So we have the brilliant, but maybe slightly flawed tactical genius. Who else was on the front lines?
Well, let's not forget St. Celestine.
The living saint herself, wielding the Emperor's divine might. She wasn't just there for moral support. She was a force to be reckoned with.
Indeed. Celestine was a beacon of hope, a symbol of the Emperor's power made manifest. Her presence on Cadia was crucial. She rallied the defenders, inspired miracles, and instilled a sense of unwavering faith against the horrors of chaos.
But even with a living saint on their side, they were still facing Abaddon and his legions.
Ah, yes, Abaddon's forces. We're talking Chaos Space Marines from across the warp, traitor titans, and demonic hordes of unimaginable scale.
A real who's who of the galaxy's worst nightmares.
And let's not forget the centerpiece of his invasion force, the Will of Eternity.
His flagship.
More than that, the Will of Eternity was a Blackstone fortress.
Okay, I've heard whispers about those. Ancient, powerful. What exactly is a Blackstone fortress?
Imagine a structure so ancient, so powerful that it can warp reality itself. A Blackstone fortress isn't just a weapon, it's an anomaly. A fragment of primordial chaos given form.
Hold on, reality warping. So we're not just talking about a planet killer. We're talking about something that can rewrite the laws of physics. How do you even fight something like that?
That, my friend, is the question that haunted the Imperium. The Will of Eternity represented a level of power they had never encountered before.
So even with Creed's tactics, Celestine's miracles, and the tenacity of the Cadian soldiers, they were still facing an uphill battle against a force that could literally unmake reality. This is starting to sound bleak, even for 40K.
It was a desperate struggle, no doubt. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, the defenders of Cadia fought with unwavering courage. They embodied the creed. Cadia stands.
But standing against a Blackstone fortress, that seems impossible.
It seemed that way. However, remember, the Fall of Cadia wasn't a single battle. It was a series of interconnected conflicts, each with its own heroes and villains. While the main invasion raged on Cadia itself, another battle, just as crucial, was taking place aboard the Phalanx.
The Phalanx, that's
The mobile star fortress, a bastion in its own right, vital to Cadia's defense.
And what happened on the Phalanx?
It came under attack. A cunning, insidious attack by the Iron Warriors.
Ah, the Iron Warriors. Those Chaos Space Marines with a real passion for siege warfare.
Precisely. While the main force of Chaos was focused on Cadia, the Iron Warriors launched a surgical strike on the Phalanx. They infiltrated the fortress, deploying machine viruses, aiming to cripple it from within.
So it was a techno-horror show happening aboard the Phalanx while demons were pouring through the Cadian Gate.
A battle fought on two fronts, both equally vital. The fate of Cadia and perhaps the galaxy hung in the balance.
So how did the Imperium handle a cyber attack from hell?
In command of the Phalanx was Captain Tor Garradon of the Imperial Fists. Known for his unwavering resolve, Garradon made a difficult decision. To contain the virus, he ordered the purging of entire sections of the fortress.
Sacrificing parts of his own ship to save the whole. That's a tough call.
A testament to his dedication. And his sacrifice was not in vain.
Did it work? Were they able to stop the Iron Warriors?
It was a close call, but yes. Thanks to Garradon's decisive action and the unexpected arrival of reinforcements, the Iron Warriors were repelled.
Reinforcements.
Yeah.
Who came to their aid?
The Legion of the Damned.
Wait, those spectral space marines? The ones shrouded in mystery. Talk about a last-minute save.
Their arrival turned the tide of the battle. They drove back the Iron Warriors and secured the Phalanx.
So despite a cyber attack and a siege by Chaos Space Marines, the Phalanx survived.
For the time being.
But back on Cadia itself, things weren't looking so good, right?
No. The situation on Cadia was growing increasingly desperate. Abaddon was facing a stalemate, a situation he found unacceptable. And when the War Master of Chaos gets impatient, well, let's just say things tend to get messy.
So what happened? Did he just unleash the full might of the Blackstone Fortress?
He did, but not in the way you might expect.
What do you mean?
Abaddon was not content with simply destroying Cadia. He sought something.
Something more. What could be more than obliterating an entire planet?
He wanted to shatter the barriers between reality and the warp, to unleash a cataclysm that would reshape the galaxy itself.
Okay, now we're getting to some seriously apocalyptic stuff.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And the Blackstone Fortress was the key to his plan.
So what did he do? Did he use it to open a massive warp rift?
In a way, yes. But he didn't simply activate the fortress, he broke it.
He broke it. His own superweapon.
He shattered the Blackstone Fortress, sending massive shards hurtling toward Cadia.
Okay, that's a bold move.
Yeah.
But what was the point of that?
Those shards weren't just fragments of a weapon, they were reality-distorting anomalies, each one a focal point for the power of the warp.
So instead of one big explosion, he created a bunch of smaller, reality-breaking explosions.
Chaos does not always operate with conventional logic.
I'm starting to see that. And the pylons, that Necron tech holding back the warp, they couldn't handle that kind of assault, could they?
The pylons, designed to suppress the warp, were overwhelmed by the sudden surge of chaotic energy. They overloaded, creating a chain reaction that ripped Cadia apart.
And that's how the Great Rift was born.
It wasn't just the planet that was shattered. The fabric of reality itself was torn, creating a wound across the galaxy that would forever change the balance of power.
The Fall of Cadia. A tragedy, a turning point, and a story that continues to resonate throughout the 41st millennium.
Indeed. The ramifications of this event are still unfolding, and the fate of those who fought and died on that day. Well, some of those stories are just beginning.
And we'll delve into those stories, explore the aftermath, and uncover the mysteries that still linger from the Fall of Cadia, right after a quick break.
Messy is one way to put it. This was more than just a tantrum, though. This was calculated. A desperate act, but a calculated one. You see, Cadia was battered but still standing. Abaddon's plans, meticulous as they were, They hadn't achieved their ultimate goal, and well, that's when he makes a decision that changes everything. He decides to unleash the true power of the will of eternity.
I'm still stuck on him breaking it apart. Why not just, blow the planet up? I mean, isn't that what you do with a planet-killing superweapon?
That's the thing. He didn't just want to destroy Cadia, he wanted to shatter the barriers between reality and the warp, permanently. Imagine the ground cracking open, demons pouring out, time itself going haywire. That's the kind of power Abaddon unleashed on Cadia.
And the pylons, I mean, they were holding the line, weren't they? That ancient Necron tech, it couldn't handle that kind of onslaught.
No. The pylons, they were designed to suppress the warp. But this was a different beast altogether. They overloaded. Imagine a chain reaction ripping through the planet. It wasn't just a planetary explosion. It was a warp rift expanding exponentially. The Great Rift, as we know it now.
So Cadia is gone, consumed by the warp. What a way to go. But there's one moment, one scene that always gets to me. Creed, standing on Cadia as it falls apart, facing Abaddon.
It's heavy with symbolism, isn't it? It's more than just two warlords having a go at each other. It's a clash of ideologies. Order and chaos meeting in the most destructive way possible.
And that line, the one Abaddon throws at Creed, I've already set this world's fate in motion even before I land. It gives me chills every time.
It underscores Abaddon's commitment, the sheer scale of his plan. Decades, centuries, all leading to this moment. It's a chilling truth about chaos. It's not just mindless destruction. Abaddon, he's a master strategist. He plays the long game, manipulating events to achieve his goals.
So what happens to Creed? I mean, surely he doesn't, survive all that.
Right. That's where the mystery begins. As the Imperium desperately evacuates, Creed is confronted by a figure shrouded in shadow, a metal giant offering him eternity.
Okay, now that has to be Trazyn the Infinite, right? I mean, he's got to be involved somehow, that Necron overlord who collects, well, everything.
It's a popular theory and a compelling one. Trazyn is known for appearing at key moments, snatching up artifacts and generally meddling in galactic affairs. And Creed, even in defeat, he would be a prize addition to any collection.
But eternity, though, what does that even mean in this context? Prisoner, specimen,
Yeah.
Or something else entirely.
That's the question, isn't it? It's fueled countless debates, fan theories, you name it. Maybe Creed's trapped in stasis, a living relic of a lost world, or maybe he's become a pawn in Trazyn's games, forced to fight in simulated wars for the Necron's amusement.
That's just cruel.
Yeah.
Even for Trazyn. But it wouldn't be out of character, would it? He's got a twisted sense of humor, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely. But there are other theories. Some even suggesting Creed might have found a way to escape Trazyn. Maybe he's out there, rebuilding the Cadian resistance, or even plotting a return to the Imperium.
Okay, now that's a story I'd want to read. Creed leading a ragtag band of survivors against chaos.
It's the ambiguity, the not knowing, that makes the Fall of Cadia so compelling. It leaves us with questions, theories, and a sense that the story isn't truly over.
It's a good reminder that even in defeat there can be hope. Even for a grumpy Cadian general, maybe he outsmarted an interdimensional collector.
Maybe he did. But the impact of Cadia's fall, it goes beyond one man. The Great Rift, it tore the galaxy in two. The Astronomicon, it's flickering. Interstellar travel has become even more dangerous.
So yeah, the galaxy's in chaos, literally. Abaddon's out there, presumably with more Blackstone fortresses, just waiting to cause more havoc. What's the Imperium doing to counter this? I mean, how do you even begin to fight that?
Well, the Imperium is resilient. You have to give them that. Roboute Guilliman, he's returned. He's rallying the scattered forces of mankind, launching the Indomitus Crusade.
Guilliman. Back? Wait, that changes things, doesn't it?
Yes, but rebuilding after a galactic cataclysm like this, it's a monumental task.
He's the ultimate crisis manager, though. He shows up, assesses the damage, and starts issuing orders like it's nothing.
It's a long war, but the Imperium has faced these kinds of odds before and emerged, battered but unbroken. The spirit of Cadia lives on in those who fight for the Emperor. It's a reminder that even in the face of utter darkness, hope endures.
Ho and a lot of bolter fire.
Indeed.
But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about the big picture, the battles, but the Fall of Cadia is also a very human story. I mean, what about the people caught in all this? The soldiers, the civilians, what happened to them?
That's where the real tragedy lies. Millions perished on Cadia. Sacrifices often overshadowed by the grand narratives of war. Their stories are just as important, a reminder of the human cost of these conflicts.
And the survivors. The refugees. I mean, fleeing a dying world. Where do they go?
Scattered across the Imperium, many of them, joining other regiments, rebuilding their lives as best they can. But the trauma, the memory of what was lost, it lingers.
Imagine your home world literally ripped apart. How do you hold on to your identity, your traditions?
It's a question the Imperium is still wrestling with, you know? The Cadian regiments, they were renowned for their discipline, their training, their spirit, but can that spirit survive without Cadia? Without the world that forged them?
It's a question with no easy answers, but it's an important question. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, even amidst the epic battles and cosmic horrors, it's those individual stories, those acts of courage and sacrifice that truly matter.
Absolutely. The future of the Cadian people and the Imperium itself, it's uncertain. But one thing is for sure. The memory of Cadia, its defiance, it will continue to inspire those who fight against the darkness.
Cadia may have fallen.
But its legacy.
It stands.
And now, if you'll excuse me, I need to check my data slates. The Ordo Xenos has some rather interesting theories about the Necrons and their presence at the Fall of Cadia. I'm eager to delve into the specifics.
Always up for a good Necron conspiracy, but before we lose ourselves in Xenos mysteries, let's bring our listeners back from the brink of galactic annihilation with something a little lighter. We've talked about heroes, villains, battles, but what about let's say, the unique personalities that were drawn to Cadia?
Yes. The Fall of Cadia, it attracted its fair share of, shall we say, eccentric individuals, rogue traders seeking profit in the chaos, tech priests obsessed with salvaged Necron technology. No shortage of colorful characters.
It wouldn't be 40K without some of those, right? Any favorites that come to mind?
Well, there's the tale of a rogue trader tried to sell authentic Cadian rubble as a luxury item. Apparently there's a market for everything, even in the grimdark.
Now that's entrepreneurial spirit. Morbid, but I bet it sold well.
Oh, I'm sure it did. And then there's the Inquisitor, who was convinced that Creed's disappearance was orchestrated by a cabal of Alpha Legion infiltrators. Spent years chasing shadows, he did.
The Alpha Legion. Talk about paranoia. They're masters of deception, sure. But even they couldn't have planned the fall of Cadia. Or could they?
We may never know. That's part of the allure of 40K, isn't it? The endless speculation, the what-ifs, the constant blurring of lines between truth and conspiracy.
He keeps us on our toes, that's for sure. Speaking of interesting, let's talk about the Eldar. I mean, they're not exactly known for their love of the Imperium, right? So what were they doing in the middle of all this?
Yes, the Eldar. Their motives are always shrouded in mystery, but in this case, it was a mix of self-preservation and, dare I say, opportunity.
So while the Imperium is fighting for survival, the Eldar are off playing their own long game. Typical.
In a way, yes, but it wasn't entirely malicious. A faction of the Eldar, the Inari, led by Eldrad Ulthran, they believed that the fall of Cadia was a necessary step in a grander cosmic plan.
Hold on, Eldrad Ulthran, that ancient, scheming farseer, the one who's always 10 steps ahead of everyone else. What's he up to now?
Eldrad. He is a master manipulator, weaver of fate. He sees the strands of destiny in a way few others can. He believed that the birth of Ini, the Eldar god of the dead, was the key to the Eldar's survival. And the fall of Cadia, with all its chaos and bloodshed, it was a crucial catalyst in that process.
Eldar gods, cosmic prophecies, and a healthy dose of Eldar scheming. Sounds about right. What does this all mean for the Imperium?
Well, it adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it? The Imperium has to contend with an even more intricate web of alliances and betrayals. The Eldar, even those who aided in the evacuation, they're not to be trusted. Their goals, their prophecies, they're alien to the Imperium.
So, even with Guilliman back, the Imperium is facing threats from all sides. Chaos, Xenos, and maybe even the Eldar, with their own enigmatic agenda. It's like a recipe for galactic annihilation.
The Imperium has survived worse, and the fall of Cadia, for all its tragedy, it's ignited a spark of resistance, a determination to fight back against the darkness.
A spark of resistance and a whole lot of questions. Like, what happened to those Blackstone Fortress fragments? The ones that crashed into Cadia? Are they just sitting there? Or are they something worse?
That's a mystery that even the most learned inquisitors are hesitant to explore. Some theorize those fragments are growing, becoming focal points for demonic incursions, while others believe they hold a power that Abaddon himself hasn't fully tapped into.
Now that is a terrifying thought. Remnants of a weapon that can break reality, just waiting to be unleashed. Not exactly a comforting thought.
It's a reminder that the fall of Cadia wasn't just an end, but a beginning. The galaxy is in flux, the balance of power is shifting, and the future, More uncertain than ever.
But even in uncertainty, there's room for hope, right? For those who stand against the tide, for those who refuse to give in. Maybe, just maybe, Creed is out there somewhere, sipping recaf, polishing his last pistol, and plotting his revenge.
One can only hope.
We've covered a lot of ground today. Abaddon's long game, Creed's fate, the Eldar's involvement. It's a lot to take in. But before we wrap up this deep dive into the Fall of Cadia, I have one final question. What are the long-term consequences of this event? I mean, we're talking about a galactic cataclysm here. How does the 40K universe even recover from something like that?
Recover. Perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps this is the new normal, the Great Rift. It's not just a physical scar, it's a symbol of a fundamental shift in the cosmic order.
It's like someone smashed the galaxy's windshield, and now the warp's equivalent of bugs and cosmic debris is splattering everywhere. Not a good time to be an Imperial citizen.
The psychological impact is just as significant. Cadia. It was a symbol of the Imperium's strength, its unyielding might, its fall. It shattered that illusion of invincibility. It shook the faith of many and emboldened the enemies of mankind.
It's like finding out your invincible fortress was built on, I don't know, a foundation of termite-infested wood. The whole structure of the Imperium feels a lot shakier now.
Yes, the loss of Cadia has exposed the Imperium's vulnerabilities, both physically and spiritually. And those vulnerabilities are being exploited. Chaos, Xenos, even internal factions vying for power. It's a dangerous time.
So what's the plan? How do they even begin to rebuild after something like this?
Guilliman's return has provided a much-needed boost to morale. He's launched the Indomitus Crusade, a galaxy-wide campaign to reclaim lost worlds, reinforce defenses.
Guilliman, he's like the ultimate crisis manager. He shows up, sizes up the damage, and just starts issuing orders.
He's brought a sense of order, a sense of purpose to a fractured Imperium. But even with his strategic brilliance, with the might of the Primaris Space Marines, the task ahead is monumental.
The Indomitus Crusade is fighting the good fight, but what about the bigger picture? Has the Fall of Cadia changed the Imperium's strategy, their approach to, well, galactic domination?
The Imperium is a slow-moving beast. Change. It comes gradually, often through necessity rather than choice. But the Fall of Cadia, it's forced a reassessment. Survival has become paramount. They're consolidating their forces, prioritizing defense, adapting their tactics to counter these new threats.
So less focus on conquering new worlds and more on fortifying what they have.
Exactly. They're realizing that they can't just brute force their way through every problem. They need to adapt. They need to be smarter.
Necessity is the mother of invention, they say, even in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. Let's hope they invent some new ways to push back against chaos, because those Blackstone fortresses are still out there, lurking like cosmic sharks.
The Blackstone fortresses are a constant threat, a reminder of Abaddon's power. The Imperium is dedicating a lot of resources to understanding these weapons, searching for any advantage they can get.
Let's hope they find something before Abaddon decides to use another one. We've talked a lot about the past, but what about the future? What can we expect from Warhammer 40K in this new era? What stories, what conflicts will shape this age of darkness?
The Great Rift has created a galaxy of fragments, isolated pockets of civilization fighting to survive. I think we can expect stories of resilience, of desperate battles, of unlikely alliances, and shocking betrayals.
It sounds like the 41st millennium is about to get even grimmer. But, amidst all the darkness, I think there will be those who rise to meet the challenge. Stories of courage and sacrifice.
As always, in Warhammer 40K, hope endures, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. The spirit of Cadia, that defiance, it lives on in those who fight for the Emperor, for humanity, for a future that is not yet lost.
Well said. It's time to wrap up this deep dive into the Fall of Cadia. We've explored the tactics, the consequences, the mysteries, but most importantly, we've remembered the sacrifices, the courage of those who fought and died on that world.
Cadia may have fallen,
but its legacy
endures.
And as we venture further into the 41st millennium, let's never forget the lessons learned on that shattered world.
For even in the face of oblivion,
there is always hope.
And the will to resist.
Until next time, lore fans. May your bolters be ever loaded, your faith in the Emperor strong, and your thirst for knowledge about this vast and captivating universe unquenched. Recover. I mean, is that even possible? The Great Rift, it's not just a scratch, it's a wound across the galaxy.
A wound that's destabilized the warp, isolating worlds, and plunged the Imperium into a new dark age. The Fall of Cadia, it wasn't just a battle lost, it was a fundamental shift. A shift in the cosmic order.
Like Like someone took a hammer to the galaxy's windshield, and now we've got the warp equivalent of bugs and cosmic debris just splattering everywhere.
A fitting analogy, and the psychological impact is profound. Cadia was a symbol, a bastion that stood for millennia. Its fall shattered that illusion of invincibility, shaking the faith of many and emboldening the enemies of mankind.
So it's like finding out your invincible fortress? Well, is built on a foundation of termite-infested wood. Makes the whole structure of the Imperium feel, well, a lot shakier.
Precisely. The Imperium's vulnerabilities, both physical and spiritual, have been exposed. And those vulnerabilities, well, they're being exploited. Chaos, Xenos, even factions within the Imperium vying for power.
So what's the plan? How do you even begin to rebuild after a catastrophe of this magnitude?
The return of Guilliman has been crucial. He's brought leadership, a sense of purpose, the Indomitus Crusade. It's a start. A galaxy-wide campaign to reclaim what was lost, to push back against chaos.
He's like the ultimate crisis manager, isn't he? Gilliman, I mean. He shows up, takes stock, and just starts issuing orders like a well-oiled machine.
He's brought order to a fractured Imperium.
Mm-hmm.
But even with his strategic brilliance and the Primaris Space Marines, the task ahead is, well, it's monumental.
Okay, so the Indomitus Crusade, they're doing what they can. But what about the long term? Has the Fall of Cadia changed the Imperium strategy, their whole approach to, I don't know, galactic domination?
The Imperium, it's a vast, slow-moving entity. Change happens incrementally, often out of necessity rather than choice. But the Fall of Cadia, it's forced them to reevaluate their priorities.
So less emphasis on conquering new worlds and more on holding on to what they have.
Survival has become paramount. They're consolidating their forces, fortifying key systems, and adapting their tactics to meet these new threats.
They're finally realizing, that they can't just brute force their way through every problem.
Necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention.
Well, let's hope they invent some new ways to deal with chaos. I mean, those black stone fortresses, they're still out there just waiting to take another bite out of reality, like cosmic sharks, just lurking in the darkness.
A very apt comparison. The Blackstone fortresses remain a significant threat. The Imperium is dedicating significant resources to understanding them, to find some way to counter their power.
So we're standing at the edge of a new era. The galaxy, it's been reshaped by the Fall of Cadia. The future, it's uncertain. But what stories, what conflicts will define this new age?
The Great Rift has created a galaxy of fragments, isolated pockets of civilization struggling to survive. I suspect we'll see stories of resilience, of desperate battles, of unlikely alliances forged and broken.
It sounds like the 41st millennium is going to get even more grimdark. But maybe that's what makes it so compelling. Even in the face of overwhelming darkness, there are those who will fight back, who will find a way to survive. There will be heroes. There will be stories of courage and sacrifice.
Hope endures. Even in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the spirit of Cadia, its defiance, it lives on in those who fight for the Emperor, for humanity, for a future that is not yet lost.
Well said. I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the Fall of Cadia. We've covered the tactics, the consequences, the mysteries. But most importantly, we've remembered the sacrifices, the courage, the enduring spirit of those who fought and died on that world. Cadia may have fallen, but its legacy, it lives on. And as we venture further into the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, let's never forget the lessons learned on that shattered world. Until next time, lore fans, may your bolters be ever loaded, your faith in the Emperor strong, and your thirst for knowledge about this vast and captivating universe unquenched.